Good evening, one and all. Happy Sunday. I hope it's a happy Sunday. This is May Day. We're reflecting on the sacrifices made by the House of Labor. And I got to tell you, I have the one and only intergalactical intellectual himself. That's what I call him, the one and only Dr. Cornel West. Doc, it's such a pleasure to be with you, even if it's virtually. I love you.
With my dear sister, you are a gargantuan force for good, not just in politics, but in the culture and the larger society. And that's why on Tuesday, your victory is going to send a message to every corner of the nation and even the world that lo and behold, somebody who's fundamentally committed to poor and working people of all colors is going to make their way to Congress from Ohio and raise your voice. So it's a blessing to see you. You know, I love you. You know, Anahita loves you.
Yes,
Indeed, indeed. And so you and your wonderful team, your
I
sister
love her
Hanya and
too.
brother Brian and brother Angelo. We can go on and on.
We
Brother
can go.
Keith Ellison, who we love so much.
Yeah, we do. And the wonderful Marianne Williamson, who was just here too, Doc, just spreading, she's been texting me all day about, the miracles and calling on, the higher powers and forces, both divine and mortal. So I love that.
I love
I love it, love it. So Doc, speaking of forces, in this moment, the labor movement is really having a resurgence in my mind that started last year and is bubbling over into this year. And I think what the House of Labor is doing, meaning the workers themselves, is a blueprint for the other magnificent things that we could be fighting for collectively, because you have people coming together from all walks of life to fight for better benefits, wages, and work conditions if they already have a union. And if they don't have a union, they are attempting to unionize. And it's just beautiful, from Amazon to Starbucks. I mean, workers are really rising up. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing and why do you think that this force is swirling so? And what is the connection between that and our global fight for civil and human rights?
hmm Well, I mean, it's very much what your candidacy is about, which is how do we use the work that we already have done in terms of the civil rights movement. You come out of the legacy of Martin King. You come out of the legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer. In fact, the spirit of Ella Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer is shot through your heart, mind, soul, and body. But you're also so deeply rooted, as were they, in the trade union movement, in the workers' movement, and in the feminist and womanist movement in terms of ensuring that women's dignity and women's rights go hand in hand with workers' rights, go hand in hand with peoples of color's rights. And it's true. Think about it. Now, 1886 was the Haymarket massacre that took
Yeah,
place, and the hanging and execution of Albert Parsons and some of the others. And now we have the International Workers' Day, and workers were celebrating all around the world of trying to make sure they're treated with dignity. And I mentioned before, we had the 89th anniversary of the Catholic Workers newspaper with Dorothy Day and
yeah,
Peter Marin at Mary House right here in New York City. And Dorothy Day, of course, is going to be probably the second woman saint in the Catholic Church. And she's the one who was so close to Martin King. She was the
yeah.
one who was so close to the Black struggle as a vanilla Catholic sister. And if she were here, she'd be in your camp too, because she knows the real thing. Dorothy Day
Yeah.
knows as does Martin and the others. And I mean, it's just sad to see how so many of these milquetoast neoliberal centrist Democrats act as if they're so progressive when they're getting big money from deeply, deeply conservative sources, and you see people coming in from the outside and acting as if, again, she's been so progressive. But I mean, we love her as a human being and everything.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
when it really comes to who's going to have the courage and the vision to speak on behalf of poor and working people, you're the only one. You're the only one, Sister Nelly. In this race, there's no doubt about that. And I hope people can see that clearly and then show up on Tuesday.
Yeah, I do too, Doc. And early voting has started, and people are out there voting. We did Souls to the Polls today. We voted yesterday, Saturday and Sunday. This was our only weekend to vote. People can vote tomorrow up until 2 o'clock p.m. The Board of Election closes at 2 p.m. tomorrow. And then we have Election Day on Tuesday. So if anybody wants more information, if you are a voter in the greater Cleveland district, I want them to go to ninaturner.com and they can find out more information about the times. So, Doc, in terms of what is necessary in this particular moment, whether it's somebody running for office or not, whether it's somebody that holds office or not, what can the everyday person, you talk about everyday people all the time,
Yeah.
people are feeling discouraged, and it's not just a feeling that is not coming from somewhere. Like, it is a legitimate feeling. Inflation is eating up what little money they do have. You
That's
have
right.
that coupled with the pandemic, and then you have folks acting as though nothing is wrong, when really, if you look at main streets, or as I like to say, the hoods where people are misunderstood, whether it's
Mhm.
rural hoods, urban hoods, or suburban hoods, the the struggle is real. So what do you say to the everyday people who have kind of given up?
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. We have to prove by example that giving up is not an option. And that's what's so wonderful about you, Sister Nina. That is, it's not an abstract argument. It's a lived life. You have your own life to lay on the line in terms of how you have been consistent with your longevity of integrity, with the constancy of your courage. And we cannot have folk going to Washington who are simply echoes of a silo chamber rather than having their voices rooted in the needs of the people.
Yes.
And that's so crucial because you got Wall Street, Pentagon, Silicon Valley. Elon just bought Twitter. I mean, these folks just playing with toys. The well-to-do getting richer and richer and richer all the time. That's one reason why, again, the trade union movement bouncing back. All of this wealth that the workers are producing, and they still not able to live lives of dignity and decency in terms of having access to resources. Yes, they must unionize. Go against that grain. Go against the power at the top. And that's the case with Wall Street and other corporate elites. The corporate domination of our society like a stranglehold that doesn't allow poor people, homeless people, especially the precious children, going to these dilapidated schools and
Yeah.
inadequate living in inadequate housing and so forth. Again, legacy of Martin King, legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer. You represent the best of the Black freedom movement, the best of democratic forces concerned with empowering everyday people, and you do it with style, and you do it with a smile. You do it in a way that you are yourself. Everybody know that's Sister Nina. She's herself. She ain't imitating nobody. She ain't posing. She ain't posturing. She ain't trying to emulate anybody. She is who she is. She is what Ashford and Simpson call the real thing.
Well, so are you, Doc. I try my best, and even that, when you are being truly who you are, people try to criticize and critique that as well, as if we have some way. I know how to be me better than anybody else knows how to be me, right?
Absolutely. You
And,
come from Faye and Talib, and
yeah.
your precious grandmama too. Shoot, what people talking about? You say, do you understand who she is and from who she comes from? She comes from a family of spiritual nobility on the
Mm,
chocolate side of Cleveland. I always say
on the
Gerald Levert
chocolate
time.
side.
Gerald
Yes.
Levert time.
Yes, Gerald Levert's time. Absolutely. Like, you also talk a lot about the difference between a thermostat and a thermometer. Can you elaborate on that for us tonight, for people who are joining us this evening? What is the difference, and why is it important to know the difference?
Yeah, most politicians in America oftentimes shaped by legalized bribery and normalized corruption are simply thermometers that reflect the opinion. They got to check and see what people think before they decide what they have to say. Whereas
Yeah.
when you're a thermostat, you are shaping how people think. that your example is one of visionary leadership that has an influence of how people think. You've been a distinguished professor, so you're a teacher as well as an elected official. Another way to put it is most of these politicians are just brands and you got a cause.
Oh,
And
hello, somebody.
a brand ain't nothing but a PR strategy of people selling themselves, whereas a cause is something you live and die for. You got to feel it in your guts. You got to feel it all the way down in your soul. And
Yes,
that's
sir.
very rare these days in American politics. It
Do
really
you?
is. I mean, that's why we love Brother Bernie. But you know,
Yeah.
he got that sense for real. He got different style, and you come out of different tradition, that rich secular Jewish tradition, and we love that tradition. It's got profound insights and so forth. But you come out of a deep tradition, the black tradition and the black church tradition too.
Yes. Yes,
Ooh,
sir. It shaped me and molded me into what I am. And I love how you always talk about, truth. There are very few absolutes. There are a few, but the truth, nobody has a total, like
that's right.
all of us could be fallible at any different moments, in
Absolutely.
our lives. And the ability for us to, Stephen Covey, he was one of the great leadership gurus in this country. And he has a quote that I love so much. It says, seek first to understand and then to be understood. Seek
Mm,
first to understand and then to be understood. And I really believe so much, especially in the political realm, we have lost the ability to understand, to seek that understanding, and to link that understanding to what is happening in real time to real people. So the oligarchs of this nation get to control it all.
yeah.
I think it's almost $2 trillion that the billionaire class has made over the last 2 years since the pandemic started.
Mm,
Meanwhile, back in the hoods, the
mm.
minimum wage is still $7.25.
That's a moral disgrace, though, isn't it?
It is.
It's a moral disgrace. But your talk about understanding is so crucial. And understanding is predicated on two pillars, empathy and imagination. And they go hand in hand. You have to be able to imagine what it's like to be in somebody else's shoes and then have enough moral development to want to be in those shoes long enough in your mind so you can look at the world through their situation so that you then gain a deeper understanding of who they are and what they're going through. And that's what great leaders do. That's what great politicians do, that they're able to jump out of their own skin, get in the skin of others by means of their imagination.
Yeah.
And then, but without that empathy, though, you see, without that cultivated capacity to really care for other people. And anybody who knows you, anybody who's seen you speak, anybody who's broken bread with you, know you are a caring person, not just a brilliant one, but a caring one. So that brilliance and caring go together with the empathy and imagination, which means you're understanding, and then you hope others will understand you.
Yeah. Amen to that. Is love the answer? Is that what
Well,
we need
love's
more
part
of?
of it. Love's a part of it because we live in a world of power. You see, love in and of itself is a certain kind of spiritual power. Might, political power, and military power in the end are empty without love, and you just end up being a gangster.
Right.
But love in and of itself, without political power, still it remains too abstract because people can see the great example, but they can't see it enacted in any collective way in the form of a movement. That's why it's very important to have social movements spill over into the political system because the political
Sure.
system because the social movements are the fusion and combination of the deep empathy and love on the one hand, but also people willing to put their bodies on the line.
Oh, yeah.
And see,
Yes,
once you
sir.
mobilize folks, say, okay, now we're going into the political system. I want you to vote. I want you to vote for the visionary, courageous Nina Turner because she is a force for good that will stand for poor and working people in the face of militarism, in the face of racism, in the face of the worst of predatory capitalism, in the face of homophobia. And most importantly,
Yeah.
she has her soul intact. So she ain't
Mm.
gonna sell her soul for a mess of pottage. That's what too many Democrats have done. That's why people are upset with the Democrats, and a lot of people turning away from the neoliberal Democrats to the neo-fascist Republicans because they think that's the only alternative. You say,
Yeah.
no, you got the Nina Turners over here, you got the Bernie Sanders over here. Please, please.
That's right. Yeah, we don't want that. I mean, either side. And there has been a failure. There's a systemic failure, and people are feeling it. And there's a saying that nature abhors a void.
Yeah, that's true.
Something is always gonna fill it.
Something's always gonna fill that void. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Exactly. But I just salute you for having the tenacity to run because it takes a certain kind of deep courage to even enter the terrain of electoral politics.
Oh my
It
my
really does. I
my.
mean, you could be a distinguished professor for the rest of your career on television, people hunting you down for speeches all around the country and the world.
And the
You could
world,
have all
yeah.
kind of fellowships and all the major institutions of higher learning. You know what I mean?
I
But you
do
say,
know,
"Oh,
Doc.
I want to serve the people as an elected official." I say, "Okay, that's what the Lord wants Nina to do. That's what Nina's gonna do. And that's why I'm here. I'm gonna be
Thank you,
behind
Doc.
supporting my sister, no doubt
Now,
about
I appreciate your support. I remember I was a college student. I tell you this story all the time. Race matters, and the distinguished Dr. Cornel West giving a talk about your book, and just that was the first time I ever met you, and I was just such in awe, and even to this moment, because you are a servant. You serve the people intellectually. You are known all across the galaxy, as I say, and people
it.
admire you and they look up to you and they love you, and you have such a moral core too. And I love when you say I'm a Christian, uh, and you talk about the gangster proclivities that can.
Oh yeah, indeed.
I'm not a pacifist, as you say, and I'm like
That's right.
Dr. Cornel West. You speaking my language.
Gangster before I met Jesus, and now a redeemed sinner with gangster proclivities, a Christian but not a pacifist. Pacifist don't mess with the folk I love. I'll throw down in the name of Jesus
So
and
down.
justice. They go hand in hand. Then I'll throw in some Gerald Levert and Little John Coltrane and Little Aretha Franklin, Luther Vandross too. I guess Cleveland, we got to go back to Bobby Womack too.
Yes,
Oh yes,
that's
indeed,
it.
indeed.
That's my language, Doc. That's my love. I'm right there with you. I'm one of those too. So, Doc, one of the things I wanted us to touch upon, another thing is that, Dr. Harvey K, and he's a renowned professor too. He specializes in the history of President FDR. He's a historian. And our dear brother Alan Minsky, he's the executive director of Progressive Democrats of America. So they have been writing a lot of editorials about the 21st century economic bill of rights. And I had a
Mm,
chance to add my mark on a bit of that. But
wow.
the beautiful thing about it is that it is building upon what FDR was working on before he died, which is the second Bill of Rights after World War II. He believed that the people of this nation deserve some guarantees.
That's right.
And he was put upon and threatened by the neoliberal oligarch type class of his day too. And he believed that people in this country deserved jobs, education, housing,
That's right.
health care. That was in the 40s, Doc.
I
So
know.
none of this stuff that we're talking about is new under the sun. King Solomon, nothing new under the sun.
That's
And
right.
they even took a poll that Dr. K, told me about, which is in that poll, over 80% of the American people were right where President FDR was at the time. It was 90 something percent Democrats, almost 80% so of Republicans, but overall, like the whole, almost 85%. So you look at that and you fast forward to the 60s and you have Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with the Poor
Absolutely.
People's Movement, trying to
Yes.
bring all people together from all walks of life to unite based on what they have in common and the future that they're trying to create. And then you have one of the greatest 20th century unionists of all times, Asa Philip Randolph. And Doc, I'm
Oh,
gonna read this to you, and I just want you to respond to it. So Asa Philip Randolph got over 150 leaders to sign on to what he called a freedom budget for all Americans, budgeting our resources from 1966 to 1975 to achieve freedom from want. He was motivated by FDR's four freedoms.
oh
And this
yes.
is what he laid out, him and others laid out: abolition of poverty, guaranteed full employment, full production and high economic growth, adequate minimum wages, farm income parity, guaranteed incomes for all unable to work, guaranteed incomes for all unable to work, a decent home for every American, modern health services for all, full educational opportunities for all, updated Social Security and welfare programs, and lastly, equitable tax and money policies. Doc, what you say? What say
That's,
you?
that's just basic morality. That's just fundamental common sense if you're committed to others living a decent life. You know, people read that, oh my God, that's the radical left. Oh my
Right.
God, that's just so far out. Please get off the crack pipe. That's just basic. What stands in the way is organized greed at the top. What stands in the way of it is organized contempt of people of color, of poor people,
Yeah.
too often at the top and the middle and below. And once you get greed and hatred, these are two hounds of hell.
Mm,
And the
mm.
question is, how do you beat back the hounds of hell? Like Robert Johnson said, they got hell, hellhounds hunting me down. That's the
Yeah.
blues, right?
Yeah.
1937, Robert Johnson. What's hunting you down? White supremacy. What's hunting you down? Corporate greed. What's hunting you down? These elites who are so cold and indifferent, billions and billions of dollars and yachts and buying islands and so forth. And you got homeless folk that can't even gain access to food.
Yes,
That's
sir.
just basic morality. That's what Martin Luther King Jr. was talking, and Fannie Lou Hamer was talking. That's what Rabbi Heschel was talking about. That's what Dorothy
Yeah.
Day was talking about, you see.
Yeah. And where their spirits are being resurrected over and over again.
In your campaign,
Yeah.
right? In
Uh,
your campaign.
Wow. I do fully believe that the people of my district, this state, and this nation deserve so much better, Doc, than what
Absolutely.
they're getting.
They really
They
do.
do.
They really do.
And I want them to start to believe it, because then they just won't take anything. They just won't allow any politician or leader to just tell them anything. They won't allow sweet nothings to be whispered in their ears. And they will understand that voting, when you vote for somebody, that's your power that you gave it to them for a small period of time, and that they owe you and not the other way around in terms of what the social contract is,
That's
one to another. What can we do together to edify, and using your words, fortify one another through
right.
public policy?
No, that's so true. That's so very, very true. And you can understand, that people are fearful. They just don't trust anybody nowadays. They
Yeah,
figure they've been manipulated so often by these politicians. And you have to convince them that, look, try me.
yeah,
I will be honest with you. I will tell you the truth. I will deliver all that I can. But I know I'm up against a lot, but I'm going to deliver all I can. But I will be fighting for you. That's what people
that's
really
right.
want. Are
Yeah,
you fighting for me? When you fight for somebody, that doesn't mean you win every fight.
that's true.
Because, devil's busy in the theological sense. The hounds of hell are very clever.
Very.
Very clever. Greed and hatred and fear can be used, manipulated to crush people, especially poor and working people. We've seen it over and over and over again. Same is true with our military policy abroad. You see, you're dropping drones on precious folk in Libya and
Yeah.
Pakistan as if their babies don't matter, as if
Mm.
that these are human beings that don't count. No, that's basic morality.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is. And, charity starts at home. At least
Yes,
that's
it
the
does.
Christian teaching in the
That's right.
Christian Bible. Charity starts at home and spreads abroad. And I want to see more of that. Even with the quickness, being there for our Ukrainian sisters and brothers and family and friends is absolutely the right, morally right thing to do.
That's right.
And it is
That's right.
morally right to have universal health care in this country, to cancel student debt, to reform I could go on and on, Doc. It's both and.
It's
And so
both
with a
things.
quickness, people are in need in this country. We got to strengthen the domestic policy here too. 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 And it just pain. I was just talking to
That's right.
um, a lady today that was just saying how when her brother died, they had to pay and he had mental challenges and she wants universal health care. They had to pay off all of his bills. It took a long time to really to do that. And just they are working class people suffering. How her son is a teacher, he teaches in a special ed classroom, and she worries about him and the debt that he's carrying
Mm.
just because he wanted to go to college. Like, this stuff is obscene, Doc.
It
it's
is.
it's obscene.
It really is. I see it every day, of course, in universities and colleges and seminaries where these precious students carrying that loan around like an albatross. We were just with Brother Phil Agnew in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago with Dream Defenders and Black Men in
And
Action
black men
calling for the
build.
canceling of student loan. It looks like, Brother Biden might be open to it. We don't know. He already promised it and he hasn't followed through, but we keep the pressure on him. We keep
That's
the
right.
pressure. But that's another reason why we need you. We need Democrats who put pressure on the president, not get receive the dictates from the president.
That's
We
right.
we right back to the thermometer and the thermostat. To put the pressure on the president, and you do that when in fact the president knows that you have your own voice rooted in the people.
That's it. And that, the courage to ask for more, not to accept things as they are, but to push for things as they can be.
Mm-hmm.
And Asa Philip Randolph, even when him and FDR were going at it, FDR was like, "Make me,"
Make me do
he's
it.
like,
Make me
"Oh,
do it.
I got
Okay,
you.
watch this pressure. We're gonna make you do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I got you." And that is how, a lot of the changes that we see of great human importance did not come because somebody with a fancy title got a clue. Every now and then that happened, but it really bubbles up from the grassroots making a demand. And his brother Frederick Douglass laid it out for us. Power concedes.
Ooh, that's exactly.
No,
I would concede nothing without a struggle.
come on. Hello,
Without a struggle.
somebody.
But I would add, though, especially in regard to you, my dear sister, that leadership matters.
Yes,
See,
sir.
when you have courageous, visionary, honest, candid leadership who really love the people and want to serve the people, then you're able to put more pressure on. You see, because when Douglas said that, he was someone who was a leader who mattered because he had his own voice. Well,
That's
see,
true.
Nina Turner, Cleveland, congressional race, a leader who matters, who has her own voice with her heart, mind, and soul grounded in the plight of the people and wanting to change that plight. Why? Because they're worthy of living
Yeah,
lives of dignity and decency.
they are.
They're
We
worthy
are.
of it. They deserve more.
Yes. Yeah, they do. They deserve more, Doc, and I'm gonna keep pushing. And with people like you and so many others, because it takes teamwork to make the dream work. And we are
Mm.
going to keep pushing. I want to encourage any voters in the greater Cleveland area. You got a choice to make. Either you're going to allow this district to be for sale. They renting it right now. They rented it out last year. They trying to flat out just go ahead and buy the whole thing this year. We can send a message to those kind of forces to say that Cleveland, greater Cleveland, is not for sale. I need you to make sure that you go vote tomorrow. And then on election day, you can vote at your precinct if you don't get a chance to vote. Tomorrow is the last day for early voting. We can send a strong message, and that message is about the rainbow mosaic of people power
People.
in this district. People power. I need you to go vote. If you do not live in the 11th congressional district, if you cannot vote here, you still can join this justice journey by your time, your talent, and your treasure. You can donate, you can volunteer via phone, or you can come on up in here. Doc, I got folks coming up in here, everyday people coming in here from all over the country to volunteer. We had a young brother came here from Lexington, Kentucky. He said, I heard the message, and he drove on in here, and he is actually going door to door right now at this moment. That gives my heart such great joy because it's not an oligarchical force.
That's
You
right.
know, it's not. It's everyday people saying that they understand that this district and this race will have a reverberation across the nation, as you opened up and said, and that this is a big deal in terms of continuing to get the type of people in those spaces and places who are not going to equivocate when it comes time to decide whose side they're on. I want the people of this great district and this great nation to know Sister Turner is not perfect, but baby, I am on your side. And the reason why I don't take the money from oil industry or barrennesses and all of that kind of stuff is because I only want to have one Wall Street and pharmaceutical industry because I only want to have one special interest to answer to, and that is the people. That's my special interest.
That's
The
the key.
everyday people.
That's the key. We tell the brothers and sisters of all colors, all of them precious and priceless, that this
Yeah.
race is fundamentally about a brilliant, visionary, and courageous sister named Nina Turner, who is fundamentally in the corner of the people's cause. And you got the other candidate who is a brand to be sold with big money dictating how she votes, what she can do in terms of various kinds of policies. And again, we love the sister, but she chooses to be that kind of brand, which means she deserves to lose because the people deserve more.
Yeah, they do. There they go, Doc. Well, Doc, that's it. People deserve more. So come on, 2 days until election day. Let's do this. Let's do the daggone thing.
Let's do it.
Let's
do
do
it.
it. Let's do it. Let's do it. NinaTurner.com. Go to NinaTurner.com. Doc, I love you.
I love you. Do the right thing, Cleveland, for Sister Nina.
Do the right thing.
Lord.